The sun was long gone. Dark clouds swallowed it whole, making the town cold and harsh at night. The wind made its way across the empty streets, biting hard into the exposed skin of an unfortunate soul trapped outside. A small boy, about 12, years of age, moved along the side of the thin sidewalk where his shoes showed the wear from years of their use. His face was pale, his eyes sunken with hunger, and his body seemed to grow weaker with every step. He had walked for hours in the hopes of finding something, anything, to fill his empty stomach. Food occupied his thoughts. The simplest meal would make everything better. He could already taste the warmth of soup, the comfort of bread, but nothing he looked at offered him even a glimmer of hope. The streets were quiet, with only the faint sound of the wind whistling through the trees and the distant hum of cars passing by. It felt as though the world had forgotten about him. The boy had no home to return to, no family to care for him. He was alone, abandoned to face the harshness of the night. Every step felt heavier than the last, his feet aching with the weight of his hunger. As he walked, he looked past the well-known stores that earlier seemed to be warm places to go and wait, but tonight were nothing but cold, silent buildings. The lights in the windows only dimly lit the air inside and gave no indication that it was warm there. He stopped at one of them and peered through the glass, his imagination feeding him all that he once enjoyed there. His stomach rumbled in protest, a cruel reminder of just how far he had fallen. But when he turned away, something had caught his eye. A glimmer, a flash of light on the ground. He stopped in his tracks and squinted into the shadows. And there, under the streetlight, upon that cold pavement, lay something that didn't belong. Small, leather, and gleaming. A thing his heart spasming over with a mix of excitement and fear told him might be what he was looking for. He stepped closer, his breath fogging in the cold. There, lying on the ground, was a wallet. It was a heavy, black leather wallet, almost. Half open, something shiny within it was partly visible. He slowly bent to pick it up, his hands shaking. A quick look to make sure he wasn't being seen, and it was snatched up. Holding the wallet in his hands, he stood there for a moment, wondering if he had done the right thing. The cold wind whipped around him, but all he could think of was what could be inside this wallet. Money? Maybe even more than he could ever dream of. His mind ran with possibilities. Could this be his chance to eat, to change everything? But then, a shadow crossed his thoughts. What if it wasn't just money? What if someone was looking for it? The boy hesitated, his fingers trembling around the edges of the wallet. The boy's eyes locked onto the object lying in the middle of the street. It was strange to see something so out of place. Everything else around him was cold and empty. There, in the dim light of a flickering street lamp, was a black leather wallet, untouched, as if it had just appeared out of nowhere. He glanced around quickly, half expecting some person to jump out of the shadows and claim it, but the street was silent. No one was there. His heart began to race. He had seen wallets before, but none had ever looked like that. Not like that. It was thick, well-made, and looked valuable. He kneeled down slowly, his fingers trembling as he reached for it. For a moment, he thought about walking away. What if it belonged to someone? What if it was part of some trap? But hunger gnawed at him, urging him to pick it up. With one last look over his shoulder, he reached for the wallet and stood up, excitement and fear churning in his chest. What is in this wallet that will change everything for him? The boy couldn't resist. He opened the wallet with shaky hands, the leather creaking under his touch. Inside, he found something that made his breath catch in his throat. Stacks of crisp bills. He had never seen so much money in his life. It was more than he could have ever imagined. His fingers lingered on the stacks, counting in his head. A rush of greed washed over him. He had been hungry for so long, and now, right in front, of him was the key to all his problems. He could buy food, lots of food. He could eat for days, maybe even weeks. The possibilities were endless. His stomach growled louder, almost urging him to take it. For a moment, he stood there frozen, staring at the money. His stomach hunger was desperate to take it, but then came the other nagging thought. The money wasn't his to take. Then, something inside him did its thing. He made a decision. The hand reached down and took the money. It was too heavy to ignore the weight of it within his palm. His eyes widened at that. He shoved the wallet back into his coat pocket, unable to resist the temptation. Take it or leave it. The boy's hands were shaking as he stuffed the money into his coat pocket, his heart beating faster with every second that passed. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him just how hungry he was. He had gone days without eating anything but crumbs. The stale bread bits he scavenged in the streets, or a half-eaten fruit he would find discarded at the market from someone's thoughtless littering. Hunger clawed at him, dragging him deeper into the hole of despair. He closed his eyes for a moment, imagining a warm meal, steaming soup, fresh bread, a soft piece of meat. His mind was racing with how this money could change everything for him. It could fill his stomach, satisfy the emptiness inside. It could make him feel human again, instead of a shadow of the boy he once was. But then, doubt crept in. The wallet wasn't his. The money wasn't his. And yet, the boy couldn't help but think of what he might do with it. His mind fixated on the long list of everyone who ignored him, passed by him without so much as a second glance, never extending a hand. Who would care if he took a little something for himself, just this once? They didn't know what it was to go to bed hungry every night, to have nothing but the cold pavement beneath him and the stars above. His fists clenched together as he wished for food in his stomach. He thought of having a chance to put something into it to fill it finally. The money was just a step away from being his ticket to relief. The temptation was too much, the urge too great. His heart told him wrong, but his stomach screamed very loudly. Will he do right? Or will it be an act of desperation? He stands there in the freezing cold air that is biting at his skin, the wallet weighing hard on his conscience. He breathes shallowly, his mind clouded by the hunger in him. He hesitates. His body seems to want to have its way by doing the desperate act, but his mind is battling it. His gaze shifted back to the wallet, the stacks of money waiting inside, offering a promise of warmth and comfort. He swallowed hard, feeling the heat of shame rise in his chest. But then, the boy made his decision. He could not wait anymore. He could not think of anything other than the hunger tearing at him from the inside out. His fingers gripped the wallet, pulling it out of his coat pocket. Without another thought, he rushed down the street. He closed his eyes with relief, gripping the food tightly, and went out of the store, feeling warmth from the meal that had already started to lift his spirits. He went to a nearby quiet bench, sat down to eat, his hands shaking as he tore into the food. For the first time in days, he felt something close to peace. Hunger inside him was fading away as comfort crept in from the full stomach. But something kept popping into his head, a small voice whispering. It would not go away. He had done something terribly wrong. He had taken something that did not belong to him. What if someone discovered what he had done? What if he had just committed a huge mistake? What's next? Is he making a huge mistake? The doctor limped wearily through his front door. His heavy coat weighed with the weight of a long and exhausting day. His mind felt tired, and all he wanted was to be able to go to bed immediately. He threw his coat on the hook near the door and ambled into the kitchen to eat something before heading to bed. However, just as he went for his wallet on the counter, his fingers touched nothing there. He stopped in his tracks. His heart skipped a beat. He stretched out again, only this time frantic, scanned every surface around him, but no wallet. It vanished. Panic ran through him like wildfire. Where was it? He remembered placing it just a few moments ago. Had he misplaced it? Fallen behind something? But no. His head whizzed by all the alternative likely scenarios and landed on only one other reason. Someone had taken it. The doctor's mind ran wild. Who could have taken it? He had been at the hospital all day and he hadn't seen anyone suspicious in the house. He hadn't left his door unlocked. He was sure of that. But the wallet was gone, and with it, a large sum of money he had planned to use for an urgent medical expense. It was the only cash he had, and now it was gone. His concern grew. Who took it and why? Was it an accident or a deliberate move against him? The doctor paced to and fro as his mind spun with unanswered questions. The only thing he was sure of was that someone, somewhere, had the wallet, and they had taken it for a reason. Who took it and why? The doctor could not help but feel that something is terribly amiss. He had been retracing his steps for most of the night, looking into every room, in every corner, and even under furniture. He was desperate with worry as what had been minutes became hours. Again and again he searched for the wallet, but to no avail. His mind began to spin. He could have lost it on the way home. Maybe he forgot it at the office. He couldn't remember. But there was something strange about the whole thing. His stomach was knotted with anxiety. Was he robbed? Had someone watched him and snatched it while he was busy? The possibility made him feel vulnerable, violated in a way that he couldn't control. The doctor's heart was pounding harder and harder with every passing moment. He had always been cautious, always trusted the surroundings, but now he had nothing to go on. He needed that wallet. It wasn't about the money. It was about the important cards, identification, and personal details he could not afford to lose. He walked out into the street, his mind filled with panic, and started walking through the streets in the hope that it would turn up. The wind was cutting through him, but he hardly felt it. His concentration was only on finding the wallet. What if the wallet never turns up? The boy couldn't believe his luck. The food placed before him seemed like a godsend. It was warm, filling, and more than he had hoped for. He hadn't eaten as well in days, and with each bite, he felt he was winning. The hunger that he had endured for so long now slowly subsided, and what he had thought he had long forgotten, the sense of relief. He sat there devouring his food, feeling a weight of decision, and yes, he was satisfied. Yes, he was not hungry anymore, but a tiny fear gnawed at his soul. Every so often, he would glance back over his shoulder, half expecting someone to burst up and scream at him for what he'd done. He brushed his mouth and was shuddering in his hands, forcing himself to suppress the thought that kept appearing before him. He had done what he had to do. Nobody cared for him. Nobody had ever helped him. Money was there sitting. Someone just had to take it. Why shouldn't he be that one? But the fear remained. What if someone found out? What if they came for him? The boy couldn't shake the feeling that the world wasn't done with him yet. His mind raced, thinking about what might happen next. Will anyone find out what he did? The doctor's search had taken him everywhere. The streets, the alleyways, even the nearby park. He had asked a few people if they had seen his wallet, but no one had any information. His frustration was mounting, and he was beginning to lose hope. Just as he was about to give up, he overheard a conversation near a small cafe. The words that reached his ears stopped him in his tracks. "There was this boy earlier, looking real hungry," one person said. "He came in and bought food with a huge wad of cash. More than a kid like that should have, I'd say." The doctor's heart skipped a beat. His mind raced as the realization hit him. The boy, the one he had seen earlier, walking through the streets looking lost and hungry. Could it be? Could that boy have taken his wallet? It could not be true. The notion of someone, a hungry child, taking his wallet was far-fetched. But the more he thought about it, the more it made sense. His wallet had vanished, and here was a boy with more money than he ought to have to buy food in a store. The doctor's hands clenched into fists as anger and worry collided within him. He didn't know whether to feel sympathy for the boy or rage at his actions. But one thing was certain: he needed answers. Did the boy steal his wallet? The doctor's heart was racing as he watched the boy walk down the street again. His eyes narrowed, and he couldn't help but feel betrayed. He knew it now. The boy was the one who had taken the wallet. Anger and confusion boiled up inside him as he picked up his pace and caught up with the boy. The boy hadn't seen the doctor yet, his head down, distracted by something, maybe the food he had just eaten. But when the doctor stepped forward and called out to him, the boy's head snapped up. His eyes widened in surprise and fear, and for a moment the doctor could see it, the flicker of guilt that passed through his face. The doctor stood tall, his voice cold but firm. "You," he said, "you have something that belongs to me." The boy froze, his mouth a little open, his body stiff. He took a step back, his eyes darting around as if looking for a way to escape. The doctor could see the panic building in him. This was it, the moment they both had been waiting for, whether the boy realized it or not. Will the boy admit what he did? The boy swallowed hard, his throat dry. He shook his head rapidly, a nervous laugh escaping his lips. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered, his voice trembling. His eyes darted to the ground, his hands fidgeting at his sides. He was trying to act calm, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. He gazed at him. Not a word had been spoken as he continued watching, waiting for some truth. The boy struggled to maintain his composure, yet it was obvious that the lie was devouring him. The doctor never blinked. He could see clear through the nervousness of the boy, the way he wouldn't raise his eyes to meet his. The wallet was right there in the boy's coat pocket, but the boy wouldn't admit it. The boy stepped back, a weak voice trembling. "I don't have it anymore. I don't know where it's gone." The doctor narrowed his eyes. Frustration was building in his chest. He knew the boy was lying. He could tell that by the way the boy fidgeted and how his voice shook. But the question remained. Why? Was the boy lying? Was he scared of getting caught? Or was there something else at play here? What will the doctor do next? The patience of the doctor snapped. He stepped forward, his voice rising in anger. "I know you took it," he said sharply. "You need to give it back, right now." His fists clenched at his sides, frustration boiling over. He couldn't understand it. Why would the boy take the wallet and lie about it? Was he truly that desperate? The boy's face turned white as the doctor moved closer. His eyes were wide with fear, and he stepped back, almost tripping over his own feet. I don't have it," the boy stammered, his voice trembling. "I swear I don't have it anymore." The doctor's blood boiled. The nerve of the boy to lie straight to his face was beyond him. He couldn't believe this was happening. He needed that wallet back. Everything in it was important. His eyes were locked on the boy's every move, trying to catch a hint of truth, but the boy kept denying it, his body language only confirming the doctor's suspicion. A cold shiver ran down the doctor's spine. What if the boy was telling the truth? What if the wallet was lost for good? But deep inside, he knew something wasn't right. There was something odd about this whole situation, and the boy was at the center of it. Will the boy be caught? At least for a few moments, he fell silent. Then his anger eased as his memories took him backward in time. He could again see himself, perhaps not so long ago, cold and hungry without one thing to put in his empty stomach. But he still vividly remembered this ache in the stomach, an ache of losing hope about any meal that should come his way. Those were difficult years, filled with fear and desperation, emotions that seemed to be shared by the boy in front of him. The doctor's eyes softened as he looked at the boy, and something inside him shifted. He could see it now. The boy wasn't just a thief. He was a product of circumstances, just like he had been all those years ago. The hunger, the desperation, the fear, it all made sense. The doctor realized that perhaps this boy wasn't so different from the child he once was, struggling to survive. Could the boy's actions be judged so harshly? Hadn't the boy, at that moment of hunger and desperation, acted in a way as thoughtless as the doctor when he was young? Could the boy's actions be understandable? The boy looked down at the ground, his hands trembling. The doctor's softened gaze made him feel like he wasn't just being judged anymore. His heart was beating fast, a mixture of fear and relief. He spoke his mind. This time his voice was so barely above a whisper. I took the money. I was hungry. I don't know what else to do," he added in the haste of admitting what needed to be told. "I haven't eaten for days. Didn't even know if that were right or wrong. Just didn't want any food." The doctor didn't interrupt. He let the boy speak, his mind still swirling with thoughts of his own past. He had been there before, the feeling of being pushed to the edge with no other choice but to act. The boy looked up, his eyes filled with shame and fear. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I didn't mean to steal. I just needed to eat." The doctor remained there, soaking up the words from the boy. Between them was a moment of silence, but it was no longer filled with anger or frustration. Instead, it was filled with understanding. Will the doctor show mercy or punish him? The doctor's mind was still racing, but his heart had already made the decision. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, his voice calm yet firm. "I'm not calling the police," he said, to the boy's surprise. "But you're coming with me." The boy blinked, confusion and relief written all over his face. What do you mean?" The doctor did not wait for any response. He turned himself around, walking to the door. The boy faltered, but then did as he was told, his legs unsteady, still not sure what was happening. When they got to the doctor's house, the boy looked around, not sure what to think of it. The doctor brought him inside and nodded toward a seat at the kitchen table. "Sit! I'm going to make you a meal!" The boy couldn't believe it. The doctor was no longer angry, but rather, he was nice. Was this really happening? The boy felt overwhelmed, not knowing what to think or how to feel. As the doctor prepared the meal, he looked at the boy. His eyes were filled with compassion. "You're not the first person to go through this," the doctor said quietly. "But you can learn from this. There's always another way." Why is the doctor being so kind? What does he want from the boy? As they sat down to eat, the doctor finally explained something the boy hadn't expected. "The money in that wallet wasn't just for food," the doctor said, his voice steady. "It was for an emergency, a medical procedure I've been struggling to afford." The boy blinked, stunned. "What? You mean you needed that money?" The doctor nodded. "Yes. I've been saving up for it for months. It's the only way to get the care I need. But it's not just about money. It's about survival, about having the strength to keep going." The boy looked at the doctor with wide eyes. He hadn't expected this. He had thought the doctor was just angry about the theft, but now he understood that the doctor had his own struggles. It wasn't just about the wallet. It was about their shared experiences, their shared humanity. But the question remained in the boy's mind. Why hadn't the doctor shared this earlier? Why had he kept it a secret? Why didn't the doctor share this earlier? As the boy sat at the table, chewing slowly, the weight of his actions began to hit him. His stomach was full, but his heart felt heavy. He hadn't realized the money he had taken was so important to the doctor. Now that he understood, guilt gnawed at him. The doctor had explained that the money wasn't just for food, it was for a life-changing procedure, something the doctor needed desperately. He fidgeted, lowering his eyes, his shoulders drooping under the weight of guilt. He had not wanted to take something which mattered so much. He was thinking about his hunger, his own struggle, but now he realized how wrong he was. He had crossed a line that was not just about stealing anymore. It was about trust and respect. He looked at the doctor, who ate quietly. He felt embarrassed. The doctor was kind to him, and still he had taken things not belonging to him. What does the boy do now? The doctor placed his plate on the table, his eyes staring intensely at the boy. "I have a lot to consider," he continued with a smooth, steady, yet kind tone of voice. "That money, it can be used for something bigger than this situation. I have an idea, which may change your and my lives completely." He straightened up on the bed, unable to understand what the doctor said. His interest grew, but with his interest came doubt. What was the doctor asking him? Was he trying to deceive him? "I need your help," the doctor continued. "You've already shown me your hunger, your desperation. I've been there. But now I need someone who understands what it's like to fight for something more. Together we can use that money for something that will give us both a future." The boy's mind was run wild. What was the doctor offering? Was this a chance to redeem himself or just another trap? He didn't know if he could trust the doctor completely, but he wanted to believe in part of that opportunity. What is this plan? And how will it entail the boy? The boy's heart raced as he struggled to understand the words of the doctor. What was he to believe? It was a trick, perhaps. Some hidden agenda and ulterior motive. Could this man be trusted? who only moments before was so angry at him. He looked at the doctor, his mind torn between doubt and curiosity. He had been lied to before, let down by people who promised him things they couldn't deliver. How could he know this time would be different? But there was something in the doctor's words, something in the way he spoke that made the boy want to believe. Could this be the chance he had been waiting for? Or was he making a mistake again, trusting someone who might hurt him in the end? Is the boy making a mistake again? The doctor seemed to sense the boy's hesitation. He leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "There is something you don't know about me," he said, his voice less loud now, as if he were telling secrets. "I'm not just any doctor. I'm a surgeon, in fact. I've done surgery that could change lives, but I never lived this kind of life. I came up from nothing like you. I have gone to sleep with my belly full and wondered if there would be food to eat the following morning." The boy blinked, stunned. The doctor wasn't just any man. He had a history, a struggle that mirrored his own. The boy had never known that the doctor had been through such hardships. He had always seen the doctor as someone powerful, someone beyond his reach. But now, the boy could see that they weren't so different after all. The doctor's eyes softened as he continued. "I've fought for everything I have. I know what it's like to be desperate, to have nothing. And that's why I'm offering you this chance. I want you to learn from my story, not just from your mistakes." Spinning around in that young boy's brain must have been chaos. He would easily judge the doctor as a typical figure of power, but right now, with a changed impression, he knew that the doc was once someone where he himself found himself. Or was this really his chance now? Will he learn from it? The doctor sat opposite the boy, his eyes a mix of compassion and determination. "I'm giving you a chance," he said quietly. "I need an assistant at my clinic. I can teach you skills that will help you not just now, but for the rest of your life. You'll work for food, and I'll show you how to build a future." The boy's heart raced. It was more than the possibility of starving anymore. It was a way to change everything about his life. The steady meal, a purpose, a future. His mind couldn't grasp it. Could he actually do it? Leave behind what had defined him, desperation to steal. He looked at the doctor, waiting for his response, but the weight of the decision upon him was already too much to bear. For the first time in his life, the boy had been presented with something worthwhile. Is the boy ready for a change of life? The boy's mind was churning with this decision. He always weighed between the easy way and that other way. Take the money, keep running, stay in this cycle of survival. The doctor's offer, however, was different. It was not a matter of quick fixes. It was about the future. Could he trust himself to make the kind of decision that would decide his life for him? His eyes moved between the doctor and the floor. Whirlwind thoughts had his head reeling. A part of him wanted to flee, a responsibility offered to him by the doctor that was not one he could possibly carry. The other part saw in this a way out, to be more than the boy who fled hunger. He finally looked up at the doctor. "What do I have to do?" he whispered, already knowing what he was going to be told but unable to voice it. Will he take the chance or go out the door? The doctor smiled, seeing the boy's determination. "It's not going to be easy," he said as they began the first day of work. "You have to work hard. You have to show up, be honest, and earn your place. No shortcuts, no lies. I know what it's like to want to take the easy way out. but that's not how you build a future. As the days went by, the doctor taught him lessons that had nothing to do with medicine. He taught him the value of hard work, the importance of honesty, and the power of patience. The boy listened, absorbed, and slowly began to see the difference between the boy he used to be and the man he could become. But there were times of doubt. He still would get the temptation to take shortcuts, get back to being himself. However, every time he thought he should give up, he recalls the doctor telling him, "You have to earn it. Nothing worth having comes easy." Does the boy take heed, or does he remain on his merry way of hopelessness? The boy stood in front of the clinic, bearing his weight in his choice. Those first weeks were tough. The work wasn't always easy, and there were times he wanted to give up, go back to the streets, take the easy way out. Now he realized he made the right choice. He wasn't working only for food, he was working for his future. It made the boy so proud that pride had never actually been there, since he's now on his chosen path, something that asked for responsibility and hard work from him, and took time as well. Well, it felt both scary and exciting. "I'm here to stay," the boy said to himself quietly, as if confirming his own decision. He wasn't the same person who had stolen the wallet. That boy was gone, replaced by someone who was learning to build a better life. Can he leave behind his past? Weeks turned into months, and there was a boy who had transformed. This was no more the desperate, starving child who was stealing from the doctor. It was a purposeful young man who learned new skills at the clinic, worked with patience, and began to learn the value of honest labor. The doctor was teaching him how to help people, but not only that, how to help himself. Now the desperation had been replaced with hope in his eyes. The boy was not just surviving, but living. What he had learned from the doctor and what he had worked so hard for was molding him into a man who would see the world differently. As he looks into the future, the boy knows that the path chosen was not an easy one, but it was his to something much better. The boy was not defined by the past anymore. Instead, he is ready to pen a new story for himself. What will be the boy's future? It was months since the boy had come into the doctor's life, and the doctor had seen an amazing change in him. Day. The doctor came to his office. He found something on his desk, an envelope neatly placed. He opened it to find a small pile of money along with a note from the boy. The doctor was shocked. The boy, now a young man, had saved enough money to pay back what he had taken all those months ago. The doctor's heart swelled with pride, but he also felt a sense of disbelief. Had the boy really changed this much? Had the lessons the doctor taught him taken root so deeply? The doctor sat, staring at the money, realizing how far this boy had gone. It was not just a repayment, it was a transformation and growth. What will the doctor say when he sees the boy's change? The doctor looked at the money once more, conflicted. He recognized that boy had put in earnest effort to earn that money back, and he appreciated the boy's efforts. However, should he accept the money? The doctor had always firmly believed in teaching a lesson from actions rather than rewards. The boy had already paid the greatest price. Did it matter if he returned the money? The doctor wrestled with the decision. On one hand, he didn't want the boy to feel as though he was simply trying to pay off his past mistakes. On the other hand, the boy had shown immense growth, and part of him felt that this was a gesture of respect, a final step toward putting the past behind him. What will the doctor decide? As the doctor sat there, musing over the whole situation, he noticed something else. The note from the boy. It was short, but mighty. "I've changed because of you. You gave me a chance when no one else did. You didn't just give me food or shelter, you gave me a future. Thank you for everything." The doctor's heart skipped a beat. The boy hadn't just returned the money, he had acknowledged the true value of what the doctor had given him. It wasn't about repayment. It was about the lessons, the kindness, and the opportunity to change his life. The doctor felt a deep sense of pride. The boy wasn't just paying back the money, he was showing gratitude for the transformation he had undergone. What is the real meaning behind this gesture? The doctor knew at that point what he had to do. He resolved to take the money, but not for his pocket. Rather, he began to use it as a basis to start a community project meant to help other starving and desperate children, like that boy, through the gates. He considered this boy's tale a light to the hope for others, so that those other people, trapped in such a cycle, could be inspired from it. Small as it began, it grew rapidly as people joined in to help. This became the shining light for children who needed food, education, and maybe most importantly, a chance to change their futures. The doctor's decision to see that money used for the good of others meant that the boy's action came to have an effect on those he would never meet. Will the project help other people like the boy? He now stood at the entrance of the clinic, observing children playing and learning. Their eyes reflected what he had once seen in his own, the impact of the doctor's work. He had been so far away from where he was now, from stealing a wallet to becoming part of something that was changing lives. As he walked through the clinic, he realized how much his life had changed. He was not that same hungry, desolate person anymore. He had learned the values of hard work, honesty, and kindness. The doctor, who no one would give a second chance to, gave him an opportunity, and now that opportunity had led him to a brighter future. He smiled, knowing that his journey was far from over, but he was ready for whatever came next. What will the boy's future hold now that he's on a new path?